Okay. I am gonna drop the check-in link in the chat. Also, for those of you who do not have a phone handy, and again, this check-in link is for us to know more specifically, who you are at which session, and if you have any specific things you came to learn. We just like to get as much, I just like to get as much data as I can at any given moment in life. So that's what the check-in is for. So if you were with us for our first session, welcome back. If this is your first time joining today for the Small Press Summit, welcome. I'm Jen Northington. I am the Director of Marketing and Communications here at Edelweiss, former independent bookseller as well as independent reviewer. So I have a lot of experience coming to Edelweiss from the user discovery side, and that really informs how I approach the ads and promotions here at Edelweiss. So that's my specific viewpoint. I also am a data nerd, as I mentioned, so you might hear me talk about that a little bit because data is amazing. So this is our session for leveraging promotions for discovery. And I want to say at the top that this assumes that you're going to spend some money. We do have lots of promotional and marketing opportunities that are free, and we actually have a whole separate webinar on that's recorded that we can link to in the follow-up for this. But this is specifically for how to best leverage paid advertisements to get the most bang for your buck. So yes, we will link to the free promo webinar. There's a lot of options for that as well. But I think there's some affordable stuff that does a good job. So you'll hear about it and then you can decide if it works for you. So today we're going to talk about, why advertise on Edelweiss specifically, what our newsletter ad options are, what our insight options are, and our e-blasts, and then getting started with booking if you're interested in going further. So, I think most of you know why advertising matters. It's such a crowded marketplace. There's thousands of titles that launch each season. And this just helps make sure that your books are part of the signal rather than part of the noise. It helps supplement the catalogs on Edelweiss and whatever efforts your sales reps, if you have them, are doing by, making sure that those booksellers and librarians and reviewers see it more than once. You want them to see it, as many times as you can. And, we all know it's really hard to get, especially like debuts noticed. And these are just tools that can help make that a little bit easier, a little bit more likely. So who is on Edelweiss? I think, a lot of there are a lot of, booksellers and librarians. We also do have consumers and reviewers, and then, of course, the publishers and sales reps. But anybody who's on Edelweiss is more than a casual reader. These are decision makers, they're influencers, they're professionals. It's a really powerful and active and engaged audience. And our newsletters have, great open rates. So you're reaching the people who are ordering, who are curating. These are the professionals who can amplify your titles. So, small budgets, there are some pretty good value for the budgets available. So what is available? Let's talk about it. We have sort of three main categories. There's our newsletter ad placements, which are, things that appear in the email newsletters that folks get. So banners, we have authored spotlights and featured reviews. We just, in the last quarter, introduced featured catalogs, which I'm so excited about. I've been waiting for us to have this available, so I'm really jazzed about it. And it's introductory pricing. It's $200 without any discounting, which we'll talk about in a bit. And so, it's a nice option if you really want to push a full catalog catalog. And then we have our on-site ads, the featured titles, which appear both in the weekly greeting newsletters and on the site in the review copies section. I think a lot of you are familiar with our title banner inserts, which we'll talk about a little bit more. We have in-platform engagements, which are similar to pop-ups that show up when people log in. And then we have e-blasts. So there's a nice range of ways to reach people. So newsletter placements, great, obviously, for reaching those readers. We have broad audiences, like our weekly greetings go to our biggest lists, which are, 100 and something K plus. And then we have smaller community focused or professional organization focused newsletters. So you can get very targeted or you can go very big, which is a nice way to, decide how you're going to get the most value for your dollar. And then featured reviews and author spotlights, these are so wonderful for awareness campaigns. It showcases, for example, if it's a featured review and you got this killer review from a bookseller or maybe from, it got a star in Kirkus, you can make sure that people know about it. You can quote the review, say where it came from, and get people clicking through to that title. And there's no artwork required. It's just the book cover, which you already have. So it's a nice, easy, quick and dirty option for making sure that people know exactly how much other people are loving that book. And then author spotlights. This is really nice when you have an author who is either brand new or has a long-standing brand, right? Because if they're brand new, but they're like super interesting, maybe, they help save prairie dogs for a living and like you want to tell booksellers about it. You can tell booksellers about it in the author spotlight, and that can help inform, why they should care about this debut title. Or like with the one that we're seeing here, this author has a whole bunch of books that are, sort of go with each other and build on each other. And it's a really nice way to showcase all of them in a single placement. And these are bookable in our community letters. So the ABA, Library Reads, Barnes and Noble, and also our monthly professional organization newsletter. So librarians and booksellers. Featured titles. I do love a featured title. This is also a very simple placement in terms of creative assets required. So they appear in the weekly greeting, which is our, like I said, biggest list goes out every Monday, unless it's a holiday. And they're right at the top. And it just says, the name, like it's got the name of the book and the author, and then the cover, and it links to the book. But these are pretty much always in the top 10 most clicked titles in the whole newsletter. And this newsletter has quite a few titles available to be clicked. So they're very clicky placements. They also get you an on-site version where you will be at the top of the review copies page for the week that the placement ran in the newsletter. So that whole week, your title will be at the top of the review copies page. So this, you don't want to book this unless, if you don't have a DRC available, don't book this spot, because really it's about driving people to this DRC. But it's great for getting more reads on a title that you really want to have more reads. Title banner inserts, probably our most common placement. So many folks use these already. They are very, nice, large banners that are tied to a specific title, and they follow that title around on the site. So wherever that title shows up, whether it's in review copies or in a catalog or a collection or a list, that banner will go with it. It helps to, stop the scroll. And you can use them for specific calls to action. The example here is to, remind people to vote for Indie Next. You can change out this artwork. So let's say that the Indie Next deadline has already passed. You can just make it, an exciting, like, hey, this title is getting rave reviews. You can talk about the reviews you're getting instead. So once you've bought it, you can change the artwork as many times and it lives on the site as long as the book is on the site. So it's a really nice way to, help out with key campaign windows, generating reviews, award nominations, deadlines. And it's also a really nice way to help people, interact with the title, not just with awareness. I will also tell you that something that I find interesting about this placement is that people will try to click it, even though the book is literally right underneath it to be clicked. So you have the option of including a URL, and I definitely recommend that you do that. It's also a way where if you use URL tracking, trackable URL links, you could find out, how many clicks that banner specifically is getting you, which is just another way to measure ROI. We can't measure that, but you can. In-platform engagements are relatively new. In the last year, we've really started to get them out to folks and see some strong engagement with them. Haha, engagement. I've said that word so many times right now. So this is it will show up on the screen of your choice. So for example, if it's on the dashboard, the first thing that booksellers and librarians will see will be your engagement when they log in. And we only run one, paid engagement at a time. We do also use them for site notifications and other things, but we work very hard to make sure that we're not overloading people and that, yours is getting the attention share that it deserves. And they're live for 2 weeks. And it is our one, currently, I'm working on it. It's our one geo-targeted ad option at the moment. So it can be specific to a user's location as well as their role. So say you just want booksellers in the Midwest, or you want coastal librarians. We can do that. So this is a really nice placement if you have a very specific audience that you're interested in and you want to hit them when they're sitting down at their computer, logging into the site. And all of the options are available via email. So I'm not going to go into all of the specific, filter options, but there are quite a few. And then e-blasts, y'all know how e-blasts work. It's a single share of voice email, goes right into their inbox. You can do a single title, or you can do a bunch of titles. Maybe it's around a theme or a seasonal collection. And in the same way that you can, get really broad or really specific with our newsletters, you can get really broad or really specific with these. We have genre focus lists as well as professional membership focus lists. So you have a nice range of options. These are more expensive, but I will say that the stats for them are extremely good. I've always been surprised at how great the click-through rate and the opens are on these, because I'm used to thinking of, people just like archive or don't even open it, but these get opened. So it just goes to show how engaged our audience is. So maybe you can do more than one, which is exciting. And how do you choose the right mix? So I always say there's no one right answer. It depends on what your strategy is and what you want for that title. So are you trying to get broad visibility or very concentrated exposure? That's going to decide whether you do, a bigger or a smaller list. And layered placements, this is great because you can pair a couple of smaller price point ads to work together. A banner or a featured spot in the Library Reads newsletter, and that helps to reinforce it across multiple touch points. So they'll see it a few times, and that's always really nice. Timing is something that's very specific, I think, to what your goals are. Everybody always asks, when do you recommend? And it really depends on what you want to do. So do you want people to read the review copy? You're going to want to do that, well, as soon as it's available in some cases, maybe 3 to 6 months out from publication, to generate early buzz. You might want to be doing pre-order ads, targeted at librarians. So when you think about their collection buying schedule, that's probably 8 to 12 weeks out. If there's an award that you're aiming for, you want to be ahead of that deadline, but maybe a little close to, maximize the attention that it gets. So there's a lot of considerations to think about with timing, and there isn't one size fits all answers. It can be really tailored to what your goals are. And then are you highlighting a single title or multiples? We do have most of our spots can highlight a few titles. There's, featured featured titles, it's just the one title, but almost any other spot can be customized to promote multiple titles. And that's a great way to spread the budget around. And if you have one title that's, got a bunch of money behind it, but it makes sense for a theme, you can help smaller titles to get that visibility that way. Best practices, always strong visuals, as you know. We do have the ability to do, GIFs for our banners and not e-blasts, but I think most of the other placements that have separate creative from the book cover, you can do GIFs. And that's always nice because it catches the eye. Really concise copy. I'm a fan of as few words as possible on those banners. So key phrases, maybe you got a rave review from George Saunders, but you only want to use like 3 of those words or 5 at most. Keep it short and snappy because people scroll. And then, yeah, making sure you're leveraging those, maybe George Saunders said something nice, or you have reviews or trade endorsements or other kinds of advanced praise. It's always good to highlight that. I think calls to actions are the most important thing. So, do you want them to download the DRC? Do you want them to pre-order the book? Do you want to, them to buy it for their store? Do you want them to recommend it for an award or for a collection? These are the things that you want to be focusing on, because just here's a book is not going to work nearly as well as something that's very specific, tells the reader exactly what you want them to do. And that also will help you figure out your targeting. Like, well, okay, if I want this specific thing, who are the users that I want to reach with that call to action? And then again, pairing your high profile, higher budget titles with other titles to help lift them all is a really nice way to get the most out of your marketing budget. And then maximizing your promotion spend. So I know a fair number of you here, based on our attendee registration list, have promotional bundles. For those of you who are not familiar, we introduced in the past year bundle discount savings. So let's say you specifically administer your DRCs and you want some promo money, you can combine those services together in one contract that gives you a discount off the total. And so you can reach out to us for more information about what those discounts might be and which services you're interested in bundling. But it gives you a discount off of the value of the placement. So instead of spending 200 on something, you might spend 180. And that is a really nice way to make the most out of your budget. They can't be applied to everything, but they can be applied to most things. I know that some of you were hoping to use, we ran some discounts in our publisher marketing newsletter that were not combinable with promotional funds. And that's because those promo funds, you're already getting a discount that's probably higher than anything I'm offering in that, in a coupon code. So we can't double dip in that sense. But if you're not trying to leverage a discount offer, you just want, a discount off of something that you're booking ad hoc, this is a great way to get that discounted money and make sure that your money goes farther. And also, your budget for the year, figure out how much of it you want to put in here, get the discount, and then you can decide what you want to spend it on later. It's not fixed. So let's say you thought you were going to do this many title banners and this many newsletter banners, but then you change your mind. That's fine. You have full control over how you're going to spend that money on the placements that are available for it. And you can track your usage in your subscription management portal, which is available through your little profile link. So if you have that, that's a great place to go. You can also see more details about how you're spending it. If you're like, what did I spend that on? You can see it there. All right. So how to get started with booking titles. I will say, for those of you who are distributed and maybe don't have access to, for example, let's say you're with IPG and they upload your DRCs and your catalogs for you, you can still place certain placements. You can still use certain placements. Others will have to go through them. And if you're confused about that, just reach out to us at the marketing email address, which we'll put in the chat, and we can help you sort it out. But if you're managing your own titles, this is what you'll see when you click on the promote link in the sidebar of any title. And, you can see here we've got featured titles, we've got weekly greetings, we've got all of the different options, e-blasts and whatnot. So you can click on these to reserve or to get more information. And that is the only place that you will see the featured titles option. So the featured titles, you want to go in through this promote modal, and it's very easy. It's right there, assuming you are administering your own DRCs, and B, that you have DRC admin, like you're a user with DRC access. If you're confused about your user permissions and you feel like you should have access that you don't, reach out to support. We can help with that, or to your account lead, whoever manages Edelweiss at your organization. They can also help you out with that. And then there's our advertising center, which has, newsletter banners, author spotlights, featured reviews. And what's really nice about this is, unlike featured titles, unlike title banners, where you're gonna upload the artwork right then and there. Ooh, did I say featured titles before? Featured titles, yes, can only be booked through promote modal. Title banner inserts also are only available through the promote modal. So I'm going to go back one screen just to make sure I said it right. Featured titles, yes, that's the ones that are in the weekly greeting and on the review copies page. And then if this user was a DRC admin and a promo admin, they would also see an option for title banners. So those are going to be visible in here. And again, if you don't see it, but you think you should, reach out to either your org's Edelweiss lead or us, and we will help you get it sorted out. But so for newsletter banners and then other placements like the author spotlights and featured reviews, you can book them here, and you don't have to have the copy or the artwork when you book it. You can book, let's say you're booking 6 months out because you want this one spot on this one day. Go ahead and book it, and then you can add the assets later. It's really nice. I will say that if you don't get them in there 10 business days before your ad is running, you might miss it. So, please make sure to add it at some point. We do try to send reminders, but anything you can do to get it in there before run date is a huge help to us, because we don't want you to miss it, but we don't always know who has uploaded their artwork and who hasn't until we're in there making the newsletter. And then, even better, in my opinion, is the reporting section. So this is where you're going to book your ads. And then up here, you'll see there's this reporting. Oh, I guess I'll backtrack and say briefly that if you have booked ads that you haven't added the information for yet, you can get to them through upcoming, and that's where you can edit. Add the artwork, add the context, add the review copy, all that good stuff. And then there's reporting, which is my personal favorite section of the site. And it'll show you for placements that you've booked and that have run and that are 48 hours past the run date, because that's when the bulk of your views are going to come in. There's often a long tail. It's always surprising to me how long people will wait to open an email and then actually still open it. But you're going to get, the vast majority of your clicks and views in that first 48 hours. So once that 48-hour window has passed, you'll be able to see, what's the current open rate, what are the impressions, what's the CTR. They vary by placement quite a bit. So you're not going to see the same kind of stats for every kind of placement that you do. But it's a really helpful way to see the impact of your ads. Now, if you didn't book it through the ad center, so let's say it is an e-blast or an engagement, you're going to book that through us. You're going to send marketing an email, and then we'll send you the metrics like a week after it runs so that you have the information. So reporting center is just for things that you bought through the ad center. Let's see. Oh, and if you have ones in here that are upcoming that haven't run yet, you'll see those too. They just won't have statistics next to them. So yeah. I feel like I sort of blazed through that. Now is our time for Q&A. And I can't see the chat, so somebody's going to have to help me out.
Yeah, Jen, we saved a couple for you.
Okay, great.
There was one question about whether we have stats for what gets more clicks, featured titles in the weekly greeting or title banner inserts.
Oh, that's an interesting question. And it's not quite apples to apples. So title banner inserts are going to follow your book around the site. Let me get back to that slide so we can use visuals because I'm a visual person and maybe it will be helpful. Where's our title banner insert slide? Here it is. So these follow your book around. So anywhere your book is, your title banner is going to be too. Um, that's on site. Featured titles, on the other hand, are going in our weekly greeting newsletter, right? Which your book may not be in because it may not, anyway, there's reasons why it may or may not be part of that send. And so this guarantees that your book is part of that weekly greeting send. And then on top of it, in the review copies section, maybe your book is 3 scrolls down, or maybe it's on page 4, but if you've featured it for that week, it'll be right at the top so people can't miss it. So, they're different placements that accomplish different things. The other thing I will say about title banner inserts is that while we can provide tracking information for the featured reviews in the newsletter specifically, I will tell you that this review copies page, we don't provide stats for, this bit of it, but this page gets 30,000-ish hits a week at baseline. So it's good exposure, whether or not they click it, but hopefully they click it. So title banner inserts are not trackable because they're following the book around, like they inhabit the same space in our system. So I can't differentiate for you, but that's why I mentioned if you have a link tracker URL builder, you can put a URL in attached to that title banner insert and see the clicks that way. Hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah, and there was a follow-up or a sort of clarification to that question that they meant to actually ask about newsletter banners.
Oh,
Instead of, yeah, not title banner inserts. And
okay.
I think they may be wondering about general stats on,
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about newsletter banners. Top banners, always the most clicky. Doesn't matter what group, how many clicks, does matter which group. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm routinely amazed by how clicky the librarians are. I love librarians. They will click on things. It's delightful. We have very good CTRs and open rates for our librarian and library reads newsletters, and you'll know because they book up fast. They do book up very quickly. Booksellers don't click on as many things. I don't know why not. It's just true. But those newsletters have very strong open rates. Those actually have higher open rates than the librarian newsletter. So booksellers will open their email. Librarians will click on things. Who knows why? These are the mysteries of publishing. Yeah, so top banners, the most clicky. Middle banners, good for awareness. You're not going to see as many clicks. And then, bottom banners, I don't generally recommend them, especially to small presses who have limited budgets. They're okay, but like I want you to get the most bang for your buck. So go for the middle or the top if you're going to do a banner. And then, yeah, the specific CTRs are, like I said, they're related to what list it is. So, I think all of them are at least at industry standard, which is like 1 to 2% CTR, and then they go up from there. And in the case of top banners, I think they are all above 2%. And the librarian one sometimes clocks in at like 17%, which is wild, but amazing. So yeah, really good rates on those. But it is very specific to, is it the, bookseller library, the bookseller newsletter, is it the ABA newsletter? Those are different.
There was a really good question about if a publisher wants to run a banner ad that highlights multiple titles, where would we recommend them linking to?
Ooh, a collection or a catalog. You can build even a collection of just those titles if it's a smaller portion of the catalog, or maybe they're across catalogs even. Maybe you're doing like a combined front list and backlist promo. You can build a collection of those and then link directly to that collection, and then people can interact with the books. They can, if there's DRCs available, they can request DRCs. If they're ordering through Edelweiss, they can order, they can tag it, they can, do do anything that they might normally do with the book.
I'm going to jump to a very related question. What is the difference between a catalog and a collection?
Oh, I never exactly remember how to explain this. A
I can do it if
collection.
you can't, Jen.
Okay, yes, you take it, Shayna.
Yeah, so a catalog is public to all Edelweiss users once the publisher has posted it and made it active and public and all that. And then a collection is private to you until you share it, basically. So some publishers make like smaller lists of titles for a certain account, and then everybody on Edelweiss can't find that, but you can send it to that specific user or store and they can access it.
Or include a URL to it in a banner. And then if
Yeah.
if they have the URL, they can get to it.
Yes.
Right. Thank you, Shayna. Someday I'll remember the answer to that question.
Let's see. Oh, related. And then I'm going to jump back to something, another topic. Can we build a collection even if we don't have a catalog services subscription? For example, if IPG does their catalog.
Yes, you absolutely can. You do not have to have catalog services to build collections, which is one of the great things about collections. And a super nice thing for those of you who maybe don't have the full range of promotional options available to you, and want to leverage the ones that you do have. So it's a great way to, get eyes on a group of books through one of these placements.
Like we have one more. It says if we have books in multiple languages, is there a good collection, group, newsletter, or other advertising option you'd recommend to promote to?
Yeah, this is a great question and something that has been on my list, but haven't quite figured out how best to approach it from a marketing standpoint is other languages. So, for example, we did a book list this year, and if you're not doing book lists, you absolutely should be submitting titles to those. I'm sure Gabriella or Shayna will paste the link to those in the chat because 2026 topics are announced. So more information about book list coming. But we did one for little language learners. So it was books in other languages, like picture books and board books. I bought like 4 of them from that list for my toddler. So there are sort of those kinds of, but that's not in the ad center, right? You're asking about something that's like always there, what we recommend. I think that it's something that I want to work on and have better options for, that are baked into the site. But there are some communities that are, dedicated to multilingual or bilingual books. We do have international users, and we have it's technically called the UK Weekly Greeting, but I believe it goes out to more than just, I'm positive it goes out to more than just the UK. And you actually could advertise in that, assuming that your book is visible to the international market on Edelweiss, which is, if you don't know how to tell that, email support and we'll help you out. But yeah, we do have international users. An engagement might be interesting if you have the money for it, because we can target by browser language, which we've done in a couple of other instances. So there are some, there's a handful right now, and it is something that I'm hoping we'll have more of in the future. I'm going to pull up the resources slide. We do have an ad kit that has a lot of information about the base pricing and, open rates and all that good stuff. And you can also get to that through the For Marketers page on our website, which is the one I recommend going to because we update the PDF pretty regularly with the open rates and things like that. And so you'll want to bookmark that page rather than the PDF so that you're getting the most current information about what our offerings are. But the Edelweiss Ad Kit is a great place to start if you're like, I need to know more specifically what are these options. There's a lot of good information in the ad kit. And then the ad center we showed you here is where you can book things like the newsletter. And let me get back to that slide. Where did it go? It's just through the bullhorn icon on the site right there. So that's the ad center. But we also have this handy dandy QR code and it's linked there. And then yes, marketing at aboventhetreeline.com. The marketing team and I are always, happy to try to help. And we can make recommendations based on your goals. We can help you figure out, what discounts you might be eligible for, and then get you in touch with client success. So, please do feel free to reach out with questions or product ideas. I'm always trying to add new stuff. Or make what we have better. So I'm very open to product ideas. If there's something that you're like, what I would really love to pay for is this.
Jen, if we have a sec, there was one more question about how to get a summary of publisher activity when multiple users use the ad center.
Oh, do you like reporting wise? Do we think?
I think so. I think so.
Okay.
Yes.
So that is a great question. This is only available to the person who booked the ad. So if you're not the user who booked the ad, you're not going to be able to see this. It's on our developers list to have an export to Excel button in here. I apologize that it's not there yet, but one day it will be, I promise. And I'm advocating for it. I know it will be really handy. We're also exploring, there's a little bit of development work that would be involved in making it visible to a whole organization or a whole role. But at the moment, the person who booked the ad has to go in and then, can pull out these stats for the rest of the team. We still have like almost 10 minutes, 9 minutes. So really happy to go back over something if people want me to say something more slowly or say it again. Always happy to do that. Take other questions, or we can have a longer break. Up to you all.
We did get a question. When would you recommend booking in the weekly greeting newsletter versus a librarian or bookseller newsletter?
Yeah, that's a very common question. I actually, if you're not already signed up for the publisher marketing newsletter, consider because we share a lot of tips and tricks and information about that. Let me find. I did a whole dive into the stats around when people book things to see what the patterns were. Let's see. Oh, right. So there's a pretty even distribution for people booking between 1 and 5 months pre-pub, and 60% of all of our ads are booked somewhere in that 1 to 5 month pre-pub window. And then there's another 20% that book within 3 weeks of pub date. So, and then, post pub, actually, there's 17%, which is kind of interesting. So I'm going to say it depends on your goal, right? If you're aiming for awards or, award list nominations, you're going to want to be on the earlier side, but not too early. If you want librarians to consider it for ordering and your goal is to get them to download the DRC, I feel like librarians are ordering like 6 months ish out is my anecdotal knowledge. So I would recommend sooner rather than later, and something like a librarian newsletter. Same for booksellers. A lot of those buyers are booking farther out. And then a featured, the featured title in the weekly greeting, if you've just gotten the DRC up and your cover is really solid and you're like, all that people need to see is this cover and they're going to want to read it, go early. But I would suggest weekly greeting a little closer in, like within 3 or 4 weeks of publication, usually, because that's the broadest audience. And so that's the most likely to have, reviewers and influencers, as well as frontline booksellers and, librarians who aren't collections specific, but who might be looking for titles for display or for recommending. So, weekly greeting, because it's such a broad audience, I think it's always better to do it closer to publication date. And then for those professional ones, you're going to want to hit them earlier.
That was great, Jen. I think they also might have been, I might have misunderstood the question. I think they also might have been getting at, and Kit, feel free to correct us in the chat if we're wrong, but it sounded like when would you recommend booking one over the other, like the weekly over a bookseller or librarian or vice versa?
Yeah, I mean, kind of what I just said, right? It's a very specific audience for librarian or bookseller. So, what is your goal? And I know it's hard to be like, well, you're just like, obviously, I want everybody to read and buy this book. Like, can that be my goal? And it's like, well, it can, but it's hard to accomplish that with a really limited budget, right? Like, so I always recommend with limited budgets, really target, like, really think about what do you think, which audience is going to have the biggest impact on this book? Is it booksellers? Is it librarians? Is it reviewers? We actually have a quarterly reviewer newsletter. And so, and then what do you want them to do? Do you want them to do the DRC? Do you want them to take advantage of a pre-order discount that your distributor is offering? Like, what is it that you want them to do? Do you want them to nominate? So or do you want them just to review the book so that other people can see it? You're going to want to go with that audience and that CTA based on what you think is going to have the greatest impact on your book's success. Great questions, everybody. Okay, seems like maybe that's it for now. So, and we're just about at time. So everybody enjoy the break. And then you're stuck with me again. We're going to talk about AI at Edelweiss at 2 p.m. Eastern.